Towards the end of his lifetime, Moses speaks to the Israelites according to the biblical narrative in the book of Deuteronomy. Now he speaks to them and he tells them of a particular location. Well, 3 particular locations to be precise, the first of which is Mount Sinai. Now we all know Mount Sinai is the place where God spoke to Moses and gave him prophecy. The second location is Seir. Seir happens to be in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is the place where Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, came from. Now, we're already noticing a trend. The first 2 locations mentioned, Sinai and Seir, are places where 2 great prophets of God emerged. Now the third one is significant because the verbs used in the first two verses indicate that the third one will be the greatest of them all, or will have the greatest impact of them all. How so? The first verb used is the Lord came from. Second, the verb used for Seir is he rose up. We're noticing a sort of wordage used for a sunrise, because the third one confirms this. It says, and the Lord shone forth. The Lord has shone forth from Mount Paran. So we're noticing the words used in a sunrise, where the least light is initially, then secondly when dawn breaks, and then finally when the sun's fully up, the light has shone fully. So the third one is going to have the greatest impact of them all and will be the final one in this series of prophets. Now, if we take a break here and we look at the next couple of verses, it mentions about this particular figure that he's going to have 10,000s of saints, and from his right hand will come some sort of fiery law. Now, we're going to take a break here and look at a person who Muslims believe to be the final messenger of God, Prophet Muhammad. A brief background on Prophet Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad proclaimed the same message of all the other messengers, which is that there's only one God worthy of worship. We find the same message in the Old Testament with Moses saying that there's only one God worthy of worship, where he speaks in Deuteronomy 6:4, and he says, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, Israel, our God is Echad, one. You cannot divide him and you cannot multiply him. Interestingly, in the book of Mark, chapter number 12, verse number 29, Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he says, Hear, Israel, our God is one God. Right now, he was quoting from Moses in the Old Testament, and in the Quran, chapter number 112, we find
قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Same word used, which is that God is one, unique. So Prophet Muhammad proclaimed the same message that God is one. He has no partners and he has no siblings. Now returning back to the discussion at hand. If you look at these 3 locations which were mentioned, Prophet Muhammad perfectly matches this third figure, because he was a descendant of Ishmael. Now even according to the biblical narrative, Ishmael was left with his mother Hagar by Abraham in the desert of Paran. Now interestingly enough, we find Prophet Muhammad was the descendant of Ishmael left in the desert of Arabia. So we see Arabia, the desert of Arabia modern day, corresponds to the ancient name of Paran. So Prophet Muhammad perfectly matches this criteria of coming from Paran. Now, what's more on top of that, if you don't believe me already, when he was reconquering Mecca, after the Quraysh, the pagans, the polytheists, they broke the peace treaty that was in place, Prophet Muhammad and his companions marched on Mecca to reconquer it. And either this is a coincidence or it's not, you guys are the judge on that. He went with no less than 10,000 companions of his. If we return to Deuteronomy 33, the passage in Deuteronomy, we find he says, and with him will be how many? 10,000s of saints. Moreover, on top of that, just before entering the city, it was nighttime, so the sky was dark, and he didn't want to take them by surprise. These were, after all, his kith and kin. So he ordered his companions to light cooking fires on all sides, so that they can see how vast the army is that is coming. So they won't try and fight back, and they will surrender. What's interesting is that Prophet Muhammad matches all of these descriptions perfectly. He matches being from Paran. He matches having 10,000s of saints, and he matches having the whole description of having a fiery right hand or a fiery law from his right hand. Now, if you don't believe me just yet, here's the cherry on top. In chapter 95 of the Quran, which most Muslims have memorized, it says, وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونِ, by the fig and the olive of Jerusalem. Right? The fig and the olive are known to be the national fruits of Jerusalem. وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونِ وَطُورِ سِينِينَ, and by Mount Sinai, it's a swear. وَهَذَا الْبَلَدِ الْأَمِينَ, and by the sacred land he's talking about, or God is talking about, the land of Mecca, or aka the desert of Paran. He swears by the same exact locations. He completes the prophecy made thousands of years prior. Now, if this isn't a prophecy, if this isn't God showing us the predictions of the future, I don't know what is. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
كن سعيدا كن فريدا عش بفخر في الحياة لا تبالي فالمعالي بالتحدي لا سواه كن سعيدا كن فريدا عش بفخر في الحياة لا تبالي فالمعالي بالتحدي لا سواه بالتحدي لا سواه حرر النفس ولا تحيا هباء يا ربيعا أنت والعطر الرداء حرر النفس ولا تحيا هباء